Let's make a distinction between the Enneagram as a map, a journey map, and the Enneagram as a conversation tool or process. Huge difference. Okay? So the Enneagram as a framework or a journey map basically tells you the most efficient, normally, the most efficient way to take any issue and move it from the beginning point to some actual resolution results. Okay, so this would be down to the action plan, and this would be around finding out whether it worked or not, the actual results. There is a sequence. And so that would literally, like if you were going to go on a trip right now to a country you've never been before, you probably at some point would pull out a map. But it's a map. You have to know the territory. That's using it as a journey map. And it would say that if you tend to follow this sequence, you'll get there more efficiently with a group of people. This sequence being starting with what you want to create in the future, different than starting with what's wrong in the current situation. That's the huge distinction of the Enneagram right off. Most planning processes or conversations say, what's wrong and how do we fix it? Well, unless you go deep enough to what's wrong, you're only going to do planning around effects and symptoms, not fundamental causes. That's a big gap. That's a problem. This model of the Enneagram says, well, we have plenty of time to worry about what's wrong, but what are we actually trying to create? And it's not so clear-cut. That's a whole different mindset. It's a very much more of an appreciative mindset to start with, not what's wrong, but what are we trying to create? How do we need to be? What do we need to do differently as human beings to model that? And then what are the dilemmas we're in? So knowing there's a sequence and an order, whether you use this asking questions, or you use the different methods at each step of that Enneagram. So you might choose to use an appreciative inquiry model for this step of the journey. You might choose to use totems, taboos, and repetitive interactions. You might choose to do on this step of the journey the mental models process, for example. Okay? But that's what this tells you. That's the order and sequence to go through. That's using it as a framework. Does that make sense? Once you step into the world of saying, not only do I want to use that, I actually want to use it as the conversation tool, which incorporates at least 9 questions in a particular sequence. Then you have had sitting right in the middle of this Enneagram, you had the core issue that you're going to explore. You knew that already. So you know the issue you're walking in to work on. And you want to know with the group, well, what are the outcomes we're trying to achieve around that issue? What are the fundamental principles, the standards, the guidelines that we're going to need to follow in order to achieve those outcomes? You start with that. It's very clear. And your outcome would be, we want to have a deep analysis, understanding of that, and eventually some strategies and some work steps to implement and achieve those outcomes. And we're going to use the Enneagram to do that, to go through all steps. And if you use the Enneagram to go through all steps, you have a full analysis of the current state in a deep way, strategies, an action plan, and an evaluation methodology.